Hello Arma community. I'm sure you've noticed that BettIR is coming very soon to our release. So I decided to make this quick video explaining how it works, what's new, and how to make it compatible with the mods on the Steam Workshop or your mod if you are a mod maker. Now, I know it took me a while, but I really wanted to build something good, realistic, and reusable. Sadly, it was hard for me to find the time to work on it, and I would happily build mods for 8 hours a day if I could, but that's not really possible. Modding doesn't really pay the bills. It doesn't pay any bills, actually. Either way, with my life and health and job keeping me busy, I kept trying to find some time to work on this update, and I'm pretty proud of where it is right now. Someone even said that BettIR is the purest mod for Arma 3 because a huge portion of the framework was actually built during my stay on Limnos, which is the real-life counterpart of Altis. And right now, I think it's at the point where we can start working on it as a community. I really wanted it to be as engine-friendly as possible, so let me explain the concept. While building the framework, I initially focused on the default weapon laser from the game. It's actually based on DBAL or DBAL A2. Now, this device in real life can do so much more. It actually has two lasers built in. One is IR and one is visible, and it has an IR illuminator which can be enabled in tandem with the IR laser. And all of these options can also be used in high and low power modes. So I felt it would be really cool if we could actually replicate it with Arma 3. Now in Arma, this device has this class name. And now, since the engine has been updated, we can now add illuminators and visible lasers to weapon attachments. So I just kept adding more and more variants of the same device. It was a bit tedious trying to add all of these permutations, but now I just needed a way to connect them together into a single device that I can switch the variants of. So I needed a way to be able to read the class names and understand which variant I'm working with and how to switch to the other variant. But the problem is, modders have different naming conventions for their class names. And I can't really just pre-program and enforce a single way of naming class names because that would be an insane amount of work to be done to update all of the mods that want to be using BettIR. So I had an idea. Why not just give the freedom to the modders? Your laser devices will need two scripts to connect them to the BettIR framework: parser and composer. The parser receives a class name and is expected to return a map of parameters of the device. The composer does the opposite. It's taking a list of essentially device settings and is supposed to compose a class name out of it. For example, here's a composer of a flashlight from Ace mod. Here I define the map of parameters that the script receives and the base class, which doesn't really change between variants. Then we read the beam setting, and if it's wide, this is going to be called Ace Spear because that's what Ace called it for the white setting. Otherwise, the beam setting is appended to the base class name after an underscore. And that's it. Let's take a look at the parser. So we get the class name, and just to be safe, we convert it to lowercase. Then I create a hash map to store the settings. Now we can split the class name by the underscore sign. And from the composer, we already know that if the class name has 3 segments divided by underscores, that means that the last segment is the beam setting. Otherwise, if it has 2 segments, that means it's just a spear and the beam is wide. If it feels complicated, it really isn't. Just pause the video and take a long, slow look at the if statement at the end of the script on the screen. So for BettIR to work with your weapon attachments, you need to configure them in the BettIR config class. Sadly, you actually have to list all of the variants, not just the base class. But the good thing is, you can just build the configuration for one class name and then inherit from it. And I believe that this right here is the minimal config for a weapon attachment. First, BettIR needs a macro class. It's very important. It must be a unique name that essentially groups all of these devices together. I just use the class name of one of the variants. Then, you should provide the parser and composer as functions. BettIR provides also 2 keybinds that allow you to switch between weapon variants. The primary one is bound to Shift-N by default, and this is what onToggle primary actually does. And then you can describe the possible settings of the device. In the case of this flashlight, I can only switch the beam. So I create a class, provide a default value and a display name, and list all of the possible values of it. The config for the debug device is a bit more elaborate. First, you will notice the slot entry. I might be removing it very soon because optics should already work without it. You can also provide custom on-activation and deactivation scripts. This is when the L key or the BettIR keybinds are pressed or released. Out of the box, BettIR provides two scripts for activation. You will find a default one which works as a toggle between on and off, and a momentary activation script which keeps the device on when you double tap the activation button. There are also the stepper keybinds, which I made so I can switch the beam divergence of the DBL-A2, but they are not supported right now. Feel free to take a look on how the currently supported devices are configured. Now, of course, you still need to create all of these variants in CFG weapons and update the slot/rail configurations folder. To make it a bit easier, I created some macros which you can use, especially for the IR illuminators. Either way, I hope this video clarified things a little bit and will help you make your mods compatible with BettIR. Initially, I didn't want to release the mod until I make it compatible with all of the possible weapon attachments on the Steam Workshop. But I think with this groundwork, we can now make it a community effort. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to join our Discord. I'm happy to help with anything. And if you would like to support my modding efforts, you can do so by buying me a coffee. Thanks so much for watching, and goodbye.